Benefits of rent to own and lease option home buying. By using a rent-to-own method, also known as rent with an option to buy later, families are able to get into home ownership a lot easier than trying to qualify through banks and conventional ways of buying homes. A rent-to-own program allows the tenant buyer, to buy the house with a lower down payment. And a generous amount of the monthly rent collected will be credited towards the purchase price. This rent-to-own method works great if your credit has been hurt recently, like millions of Americans, as it allows you time to repair your credit so that at the end of the rent/buy term you can qualify for conventional bank financing, then outright purchase the home from the landlord. For those folks who cannot buy a home through traditional means, renting to own houses is a viable option for home ownership. The rent-to-own method brings the dream of homeownership to people who may have otherwise thought it was impossible. The rent-to-own method brings the dream of homeownership to people who may have otherwise thought it was impossible. Here are just a few of the benefits of renting to purchase. Rent money becomes an investment. In most situations, rent money goes into the landlord's pocket to pay the mortgage on the home, to supplement his or her income, and does nothing more for the renter. With rent-to-own houses, a portion of the rent money goes toward the purchase of the home, making it an easier way for most renters to invest in a home. Purchase can be made regardless of credit score. For those with less than perfect credit, rent-to-own houses are the way to go. Since the rent payments are going toward the purchase of the home, it works much like a mortgage payment would. When it comes time to make the last payment and buy the house, the landlord can use the credit the tenants established with them to justify the sale of the home and transfer the deed. Move in quicker. When it comes to a typical mortgage and home purchase, it can take months from the time the offer is accepted on a home before the buyers can move in. With rent-to-own houses, people can usually move in within a week or two of the deal being made and the documentation being signed. Equity grows faster when compared to the average mortgage. Equity builds faster in a rent-to-own situation because the appreciation happens faster. When a tenant is in control of the home, he or she may make improvements as they pay the rent. When it is time to make the final payment, the purchase price may be much less than the home is worth. Full control of the home. When the tenants move in, they get full control over the home, meaning they can make adjustments and improvements where they see fit. Because they have such high stake in the property, they are not going to spend their own money to improve a home they won't live in for a long time and eventually own, so landlords don't have to worry about the tenants damaging the property. No taxes. Since the home still belongs to the landlord remains responsible for the property taxes until the balance is paid in full and ownership is transferred to the tenant. This makes it easy for the tenants to save money until they own the home, to prepare for the expense once they do. There are many other benefits for both tenants and landlords. While tenants might pay higher rent for a situation like this compared to a conventional renting situation, they will do so willingly to know the property will eventually be their own. Plus, an amount of rent paid oftentimes is credited towards the purchase. Cheaper to buy than to rent in 72% of largest U.S. cities. Despite the rising number of renters across the country, it is cheaper to buy a home rather than rent one in 72% of the 50 largest cities in the U.S., according to an index released by real estate search and marketing site Trulia. Since the start of the Great Recession, many former homeowners have flooded the rental market. Following the principles of supply and demand, renting has become relatively more expensive than buying in most markets. Though necessary for achieving true economic recovery, stricter bank lending practices have also further aggravated the struggling house market in the short term. Even highly qualified home buyers face intense scrutiny in their income, savings, existing debt and credit history before they can get a mortgage loan. In 36 out of 50 of the country's most populous cities, buying a two-bedroom home is less expensive than renting one. These cities include many areas that have been hit hard by foreclosures, such as Las Vegas, Phoenix and Fresno. California sounds like it's time to buy.